Alrighty, Benny, mate, thank you so much for joining us. For everyone at home that is following along, listening, we have just spent the last hour and a half trying to get this up and running. This is the first ever online recorded version of the podcast. So I'm technically illiterate. It's taken me 2 days to work out, not just this past hour and a half. But, mate, thanks so much for joining me. We've got a little bit of a special podcast today in terms of we're focusing a bit more on running, and you are the running expert in my book. That goes to show also how many runners I know. So, mate, thank you so much for joining me. And we've also got a couple of questions from everyone. But, mate, what I would love to do is get you to introduce yourself to the players at home, let them know a bit about what you do, and currently what's going on with Run the North as well. And then we'll rip in and get into it.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for that, mate. So like you mentioned, I set up Run the North with a mate of mine, Nick, 3 years ago now. So, I've always just run and loved it, and somewhat got pressured into coaching with him. So I'd coached in the school system in Brisbane for a little while, and he coaches a track group, which are quite good, but very much that high school to open age, sort of trying to make rep level teams. He was keen for a bit of help, and I sort of ummed and ahed. We had a few coffees, and then at the end I thought, well, he's not going to keep buying me coffee, so I either need to say yes or no. But I just didn't want to go down that path. So I sort of met him halfway and said, look, I'm keen to do something, but probably not with, athletes trying to make state and national teams. I'm probably more interested in the punter, the general population, and, trying to get people to even just get them to run, or I maybe thought one day we'd help people run a faster park run, but it's definitely it's grown to be a lot bigger and a bit more serious than that now. But so I've been doing Run the North for over 3 years now. So we obviously saw that that massive boom for running that you would have noticed, like right at the start of COVID, when gyms had to basically shut down. We'd only just started before that, so somewhat opportune timing for us while everyone was getting
Perfect
outside
timing.
again. A lot of people that probably hadn't run for years that were doing the gym thing, so it was good. It was people that you wouldn't normally see.
Awesome. And I think as well, like we did see that massive uptake in running because it was really all you could do unless you had your own setup at home, or you were kind of like us running underground sessions in the gym when it was all locked down, just kept the roller door down and made sure we had players on the inside that took us off the watch list. So that definitely helped the back pocket during that period. But no, mate, that's great. And it has, like, I remember when it first started up, there were just a couple of shoes down there, and now seeing like on socials, like it's getting bigger and bigger, and as it starts to warm up, of course, all those people that are like me and not a pretty weak-willed when it comes to winter, all of us start coming out of the woodwork as soon as it warms up. That's my running at the moment. I think I'm 2 weeks into the new block. The new block starting.
I was going to say I've seen a bit of running from you lately, so you give yourself a bad rap, but you're out there, mate. It's picked up,
mate. Well, I tell you what, I'm 6 months on, 6 months off. So as soon as we hit December, once I've done the run, that's it. That's me until June, July every year. So yeah,
that's probably not a bad way to do it.
Yeah. Oh well. All right. We'll see. Anyway, mate. Like so. Well, and what I want to know, what I want for everyone else to know, is sort of like how'd you get into running? Because it's obviously something that almost everyone can do, but not everyone does it right. What got you into running? What was sort of like, I guess, to kind of take it to that next level, just being a bit of a weekend warrior like myself when it comes to hitting the pavement? How did you get into it, and how did you start to progress up along the way?
Yeah, interesting one. Like, I got into it pretty young, and I was never, the most talented. But it was probably around like the end of primary school, start of high school. Like Sydney 2000 was a thing. There was some pretty good athletes around, and I remember scrapbooking the Sydney 2000 Olympics, funnily enough. And you sort of just work your way through, right? Like I had a heap of mates that we'd always done swimming and swimming and cricket and a couple of other sports. And I had a heap of mates that went and did little athletics, and so I wanted to do that. But mum and dad wouldn't let me because we'd already started other sports for the year. So that it was like I think they were testing me, like if you're keen again in 12 months, you can do it. So
Yeah, okay.
waited 12 months and then just sort of followed, just loved it. Did little athletics, then did athletics through high school. It was reasonably big at the school I went to. So followed that all the way through. Like I said, it's never the fastest, but just loved it. Really enjoyed it. And then I think like a lot of people, like come out of high school, went to uni, and sort of fell away from sport or organised sport for a while, and then come back to it probably like in the mid-20s, I guess, like more as just a way to hang out with some friends, but also sort of deal with some mental stuff as well. So did that and just enjoyed the jogging, really, to tell you the truth. Like I was never gonna never gonna break a world record. Um, and then have just sort of stuck to it, right? Like year on year, just run more and more. And then right up till sort of 3 years ago when we set up Run the North, and I'd sort of coached a little bit more seriously.
Yeah, okay. And I always find this interesting because there's always like the throwaway, like, what do you like about running? And, people say, oh, the runner's high and all this. I've never experienced that. And, I've dredged along for a while. Just battling those demons in my head most of the time that are saying, pull up, mate, you've done well. Just pat yourself on the back and call it a day. But I guess, is there something specific that you do find enjoy about, or do you get something out of it? Is it that clarity of mind? What does it for you? What floats your boat when it comes to running?
Yeah, I think it's like, I mean, it's somewhat ingrained now, which is great. And I realise it's taken years to sort of build the habit. But um, even if I had no running goals whatsoever, I think I would still try and get up and run or go to the gym. I find that I'm significantly more productive throughout the day if I've exercised first thing in the morning.
Yeah, okay.
So that's sort of one thing. But then, it depends on the day, right? Like I get really excited for days where, like easy days I used to hate, whereas sometimes you just love them. Like you just get out and you can run with different people and just have a chat. It probably sounds pretty lame to a lot of people, but that's how I catch up with a lot of people. Like we'll go for
Yep.
a jog and a coffee and that, and so I love that. But then there's days where you've got a hard session, and I can get really excited for those days as well. That whether you're doing it in a group or by yourself, it's just put yourself in the hurt locker and strap yourself in till you get it done. So it's both those sort of days. I get really excited for the easy stuff. I get really excited for the hard stuff. Probably it's good mentally for me to get out there and use some energy. I think is the underlying tone there.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I think, and even the research shows now that getting out and doing anything, even if it's that cold exposure, something in the morning is generally going to set you up. And we all know the dopamine effect that happens after any type of exercise. So you bang on that ability to keep on working through. I love it. Now, this is, I guess, a part of my questions, but it also kind of fall into other people's as well. But what's your normal routine look like? So, and this might be different blocks, but say like if you're not training for anything, anything, I mean, like a big race or something. What's sort of like your routine look like throughout the week in terms of running? So the program, but then also like the lead up. So it might be fueling, it might be recovery as well. How does that all start to work? Just on a general sort of block, but then also, and we'll get a bit more specific in the lead up to an event.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess if I'm not training for anything, like it sits in the Run the North schedule. which will be unsurprising to anyone. Like when I set that up, I had the luxury of what do I like to do on what days. Well, that's what the run club's going to look like. So if I'm not training for anything, it's an easy jog and a coffee on a Tuesday. It's something harder, that might be around that sort of 21, 22 minutes of effort on a Thursday, and then something over the weekend, whether that's like a 5K park run with friends or a longer run in the trails on a Sunday. Like it could be anything really. So sort of that 3 day a week if I'm just ticking the legs over. And then in between that, trying to work in some gym as well. So I'll typically try and, it probably doesn't look like it, but I do try and lift weights a couple of days a week. I'm sort of the opposite of most of your classic gym guys. I haven't done a bicep curl in a pretty long time, but it's a lot of lower leg, lower limb stuff. But yeah, so I'll do that a couple of days a week. Try and get some Pilates in there as well. That's like just a general sort of just doing something every day almost. And then yeah, if I'm actually training for something, obviously the runs increase. The hard stuff doesn't increase a whole lot. Like you might go from one hard session to two a week. It's just like every day that would have been a gym day becomes a gym and an easy jog, and it's all that aerobic capacity stuff that builds up. So then it'll become running 6 to 7 days a week, depending on how the body holds up.
Yeah, okay, perfect. And now this is actually interesting because I got to witness in the gym a lot of your training and stuff. So this is kind of a two-parter, but in terms of like adding a gym routine in, how have you found that? So previously, because I'm going just off recollection from when we have chatting, but there was I believe a period of time where you were kind of just running, maybe picked up a couple of niggles, I think in the calf or Achilles, and then really started to focus on that when you'd come in to do sessions, because we would change up that program pretty often to suit you as best we could. So how have you found that, I guess, your running and your recovery and how you might actually perform prior to a bit more specificity inside the gym? And then have you found it since?
Yeah, I guess when I started going to the gym, like it was really just sort of to do something. So I didn't really matter what the session was. I didn't really know what I needed to be doing, but I wasn't really asking anyone either. Which was probably okay at the time. Like I would have had a very low strength base and strength training base. So it was like whatever I did, I was going to see some sort of adaptation.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, you're quite right. I had a calf injury, and that's when sort of thought, well, I need to get a bit more sensible about what I'm doing here, and just the things that I do. So that's I remember we worked out that one of my glutes in particular was like it was there for show only, and wasn't doing that good a job. So just working out exactly what muscles I was using all the time, um, and whether or not they were actually actually playing a role and actually useful. So yeah, that's where it ended up, and to the point now that so since moving down south, I haven't been in a structured gym. I've had a program online, which I very much, like I said, I'm only doing sort of 2, maybe 3 sessions a week. So I'll always fit that around my running sessions. And then I just sort of cherry pick the sessions that are, your classic squats, deadlifts, lunges. It's basically all lower body, and occasionally there'll be an upper body exercise that I'll throw in as like a rest, because I think I realised that I didn't have that hamstring, calf, glute strength at all. So I've had to do a lot of work over probably 4 years or more,
Yeah.
of pretty consistently hammering away at those. So yeah, that's generally what my workouts look like now. It's just like a lot of lunging through the room and glute work.
how how have you found your running from that? So would you like, and I'm not trying to coerce an answer out of you, but have you noticed an overall benefit from strengthening those specific muscle groups? Can you kind of clearly define, like, yeah, it helped my running a bit, or it has helped the running quite a lot? Like, where would you, I guess, kind of put on that spectrum? And don't feel obliged just because I'm a coach to say like,
um,
oh, the gym's the best. Like, this is just personal opinion.
no, it's like significantly. Yeah. Like I don't know how you would measure it, but I mean, and touch wood, but I haven't been injured since that calf injury. So potentially 4 years. Like I'm through an Olympic cycle without getting injured. So that's good. That's good news for me. But no, so yeah, like I rate it almost more than a lot of the running that you'll do. Like I've been able to do what I've done over the last few years purely because I can keep putting. Like I always try and tell people, make this week look like last week for as long as you can, and that's sort of how endurance events work. And I think the only way I've been able to constantly do kilometres is by also doing the strength work. Like the years before I started doing any strength, you'd be lucky if I put 6 months together before a pretty major injury.
Yeah,
And then
okay.
you'd be out, like sort of not running at all for minimum 12 weeks, and then you start again, and you sort of just repeat that process, and you see a lot of people fall by that way, unfortunately. But I think strength work is sort of non-negotiable. Like if you want to run long distance stuff, that's part of it. It's not like, oh, it's good to do that as well. For me, it's like, no, that's just one of the sessions you have to do.
Yeah, perfect. I love that. And thank you for letting me coerce that answer out of you. The thing is like, I see it all the time. Like there's I guess runners, there's triathletes, there's a whole bunch of people that I'll see on Instagram, and their training's going epic, and they post a really good time for a run. They try and better it, or run or event. They try and better it. I ask them like, hey, you doing any training? And they're like, nah. Oh, apart from, sorry, are you doing any strength training? Like, no, I don't have time. And then inevitably, within at least a 12-month period, I've seen all of them go down that say they don't do any strength training. Yet you look at, and this is just what I noticed, but you look at people that are runners that are doing this long distance stuff, they will put their gym workouts up there, and they do credit a lot of it. And at the end of the day, it's that strength and mobility that's going to be able to keep them going.
Well, yeah, that's what gives you your robustness, right? Like that's what makes you able to run through a session. But I think also, like it also makes you feel stronger when you are running, and it helps a lot when you're trying to teach running form. It is considerably easier to do it with someone that has got some sort of strength training behind them, because they know how to activate muscles. Their muscles know how to switch on. Like it's a completely different game to someone who's not strength trained. It's one of the pre-screening questions I ask everyone that we take on. Like I want to know what strength work they're doing, and I in no way want to take over that ever, because there's a lot smarter people than me in that world. I just want to sort of know that they're doing something and where they're doing it, because it helps me program where I'm going to put a heavy run session through the week. But also, if they say to me, no, I don't lift anything, I don't need to, I'm just going to run 7 days a week, that's when I know I need to have a conversation, because that's the person that's going to get injured, and then they'll look back at what we're doing. Oh, well, I went there and those guys injured me.
Yeah, 100% right. Yeah, no, that's actually really awesome that you add that into a screening process, because I don't believe there would be probably a lot of, or I guess, running coaches that potentially add that in. And this is just I guess a subjective thought, but yeah, it's actually very interesting that you do ask that question. I like it. It's good. Anyway, yeah, awkward silence. I didn't really have anything to follow on from that.
Oh, sorry. No, you froze for a second there, and I was like, oh, I don't want to talk over the top of him.
Oh, oh well, we'll just cut that bit out.
Yeah.
Perfect, mate. Well, what I want to know, mate, is what's probably one of your, I guess, proudest moments in terms of achievements. It could be on the track running. It could be someone that you've coached. But is there any sort of any sort of like big highlights that really stick out for you that you'd love to share on, and also, I guess, kind of blow wind up your own asses per se?
um, yeah, there's a few. You know what? The funny thing is with all this, like when I started Run the North, I was like I said, my mate Nick was already doing the track side. He wanted me to come on with him, and I sort of thought like, oh, I'll do this, and this will be my way to convince him to run a marathon. Like I was certain he had like he was a very talented athlete, went to America on a scholarship, supremely talented, and I just thought, oh, he's got a good marathon in him. So there was that part of me that thought like, I'll do this, and he'll work his way towards that. And I remember him saying to me at the time that he wasn't that interested in what he could do anymore. Like he was interested in coaching the juniors and the track squad to help them on their journey. And I remember walking away from that conversation and thinking, he's got rocks in his head. Like, how can you not be interested in it? How can you not be interested in yourself? Which sort of says a lot about me back then. But I think now, if I look at like everything that gets me excited, like there's certain people that come to my head and races they've run, and just seeing them do things that they didn't think they'd ever be able to do. So yeah, without singling anyone out, but it's those moments now when people sort of have a lofty goal that they achieve, or have a goal, you know, that they smash out of the park, and they never thought they were going to be able to do that. And you sort of see how happy how happy they are about it. That's what gets me out of bed now. Um, and then I guess the other side, like I know I've brought it up a few times, but the track squad arm of our run club, we had a national champ earlier in the year, and I just so happy for Nick and all the work he's done on that side as well. So yeah, maybe I'm changing in my old age. I'm a bit more selfless, but yeah, it's those feel good weekends. I remember early days we had a runner come back to us, and she'd been there for, I don't know, 6 months, 12 months, I can't remember, but it was early, right? And she'd absolutely blistered her 10K PB, and like her happiness at Run Club the next week and coming in. And I remember her saying to me, like, can I give you a hug? She was just so wrapped with herself. And one of these people that, like, going into the weekend, I could have told you, like, she would have been paying $1 to break her PB, but just didn't back herself, and couldn't see what I think we could see from looking at the data.
Yeah.
So I mean, you'd know what it's like when people smash a PB out of the park and achieve a milestone. Like that's the warm and fuzzy stuff.
Yeah, nice. Good answer. Love it. Now, I guess I kind of want to get around your mind leading up to an event. And again, this will be a two-parter. So I'd like to know what you do. And then I guess I'd kind of like to know what you would do for someone, say, Gen Pop, that might be starting to run. So in the lead up to an event, sort of what does that look like as you're starting to increase like kilometers, volume, intensity? What does that look like for you? How do you start to manage it? And then if, say, I came along, I've only ever done a few park runs, nothing much. How might that look for me if you were to say, okay, look, we've got, let's say we've got an event in 6 months. Would you say that that's a good lead-in time? Should it be a little bit more? What sort of like your thresholds you're working there with Gen Pop after you answer for yourself?
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. For myself, it's like I said before. So I think at the moment I'm running 7 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week if I just feel like the body needs a rest. And then yeah, there's 2 gym sessions at least in there, Pilates as well. So that's for me. if I was to break down those 6 or 7 runs, like it's 2 sessions, so it's only twice that I'm doing, intervals or threshold work. There might be a
Okay.
longer effort on a weekend, like a longer threshold effort. So call it 3 times that you're going reasonably hard in a week, and then everything else would be just aerobic base, sort of zone 2, zone 3 max. Just, yeah, aerobic capacity work, trying to keep the heart rate down, build the kilometers up. Um, yeah, and it's a good question. Like, oh, sorry, you go.
No, oh yeah. So what I was going to say as well, what I was going to ask, sorry, you just said there. So you're building up the kilometers. What does that scaling look like? I guess as you're getting closer to that event, how does that work? Do you do you increase? Is it just kilometers? Would you increase intensity? Try to cut time? How does that look out on the track?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's time. I work everything off time. I had
Okay.
a great coach. The last coach I had, running coach, before sort of starting Run the North, was big on programming time. Guy on the Gold Coast named Blaine Arnold, absolute brainiac, very very smart physiotherapist as well, and he was big on not setting distance, because I could like say I say to you, Josh, go and do a 10K run, but keep it easy. A lot of people will go out there and get 4Ks in and go, geez, I feel good today. Maybe I'll just see what I've got.
Guilty.
Yeah, and that's how people get injured, right? Because all of a sudden it's an easy day. You've maybe done a session a day or 2 days earlier, and you're running hard again. So he would always program, and that's how it's sort of added to my coaching philosophy now. Everything is time based, because no one
Okay.
really knows what you can run for 50 minutes or 55 minutes, or and I also love I tell people all the time, like, you can't do a 60-minute run in 58 minutes. So it's that theory. So everything's time. Everything I'll do is based off time. I just think it's a safer way, particularly for people with a low sort of training age or no sort of history of running. But then I think there's benefits for people that do have a big base behind them as well. So yeah, for me, it'll all go up time wise. Sessions, depending on what they're training for, either intervals will get longer, or they'll get faster. That very much depends on what you're training for. Um, and then it's a matter of, like, every 4 weeks they'll sort of have a deload, and then build again for another 3 weeks every fourth week. Is generally how it works. Like, it does depend on what time frame you're working towards. Like, most people now will have a event in mind. So and life's busy, right? Like, I've got a guy I coach for at the moment who 2 or 3 weeks of the month he's out rural and
Yeah.
can't
Right.
train. Yeah, so he does, like 4 days there that he can't train. So we'll just do gym stuff, and then he'll have a week and then in that week, everything will be in like 3 days at the end of the week, which
Yeah.
is
Okay.
fine. Just noting that when he comes into the next week that he's at home, he's had a very big load, acutely at the end of the last week. So we've got to spread it out. So it's probably one of the more interesting programs I've ever had to write. But it depends, right? Because life's busy, and people will say to you that they can only run on certain days, and they've got family or work or other responsibilities every other day. So it sort of depends on what you get thrown your way. But typically, like, I always think if you've got a base, 12 weeks is is good, depending on what you're training for. But you
Yeah.
can get
Right.
a lot of work done in 12 weeks. That's if you came to me and said, Ben, I've been running 3 days a week for the past year. So
Gotcha.
we have a big push for Gold Coast Marathon and Sunshine Coast Marathon, Bridge to Brisbane, those sort of events in Queensland every year. And we try and start people in Feb. So it gives us about 20 weeks. The idea
Yeah.
being
Okay.
that if you've got no sort of training age or base behind you, in 20 weeks we can sort of spend 8 weeks building something, and then 12 weeks sort of doing a solid block at the end. And then if you've already got a base, it's like, well, 20 weeks isn't going to hurt you. You just keep ticking along um, for the first 8 weeks. And a lot of that, like I said, will be a lot of aerobic capacity base building stuff where you're not digging yourself a hole that much. You're just trying to get as cardio fit as you can whilst your body gets used to pounding the pavement.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. With that, so say I've had clients ask me this question as well, and I don't have an answer for them because I'm certainly not a running coach. But say I've got someone that's been training consistently in the gym, and they've been told or they realise that okay, I need to add more cardio into the diet, and I want to run. I want to be able to run again for whatever reason it might be. So if I've got someone that's come to you that might be, say, strong but not have run in a long time or at all, how are you going to approach that if there's no real specific goal in terms of like a Gold Coast Marathon or a Bridge to Brisbane? There's no real specific goal. How do you approach that, and say they just want to be able to run 5 or 10K?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a guy at the moment that I this exact scenario. So, my first, like it's a good situation, right? Because, like I said, if they're strong, they're robust. So you're gonna have. So when you start running, like as you know, your lower limbs are copping a hammering. Like, I think it's seven times your body weight or something through your shins. So
I'd believe that
it's
because
a huge,
my legs haven't
yeah.
stopped hurting since last Thursday.
Like if you're just starting, you putting your body through the ringer. So at least if you know that they've got some sort of strength base, you're going to be able to put them through a little bit more. And obviously that's goal number one, right? Don't break them. That's the last thing you want to do. Like that's before you do anything else. Like it's don't break them, and then if you don't break them, then try and work out how you get them a little bit more fit. Um, but you know that so they're gonna be a little bit robust. I would always say make sure they have running shoes, because I've seen people go and do a run in your Metcons or your lifting shoes, and
Dunlop volleys.
it's not. Yeah, it's nightmare fuel, right? So, like you can get some pretty good shoes for like between 100 and $150 these days. So I'd make sure they have those, and then from there, like you want to work out what they can do. So like some people will come to you that wouldn't have run, and 20 minutes will be that's all I've got. Whereas other people, they might be able to do 30 or 40. But ideally, depending on where their sessions are in the gym in a week, I'll try and give them one easy run, which is literally just to like go out there, keep your heart rate pretty low, and just tick off the time. And like I said, whether that's 20 minutes, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, and that'll just increase. So, say it starts at 20 minutes this week, it might even stay at 20 minutes for the first 3 weeks, 4 weeks
Yep.
even, and then it'll start to go up sort of 23, 26. It might even get to 29 in the next block before you sort of go back and go, okay, now have another week at 20 again. And you just sort of like build them up until you just want their body to get used to being out there and running, and dealing with the pressure. And then I get that it's not that exciting to just jog every day. So I'll then try and give them a session once a week. So that might be intervals, or it might be fartlek where you're running hard for like 2 minutes and then jogging for a minute. So you don't really get any rest. Your jog is the rest, purely just to keep it a bit more exciting. You know what I mean? Like people are going to get pretty bored of it pretty quick,
Yep.
and so you want to keep them there. Like the other part is like most people will look at a running program like that, sort of like if it's 2 days a week with strength, and go, okay, well, one day I'm just jogging, the other day that's the magic. Whereas I look at it the other way, like you're getting the interval session so that I get you to come back next week and you're excited to run. and the magic's actually you doing the low intensity jogging stuff earlier in the week. Like that for me is like, I get excited about building that up, because that's what's
Yeah,
going to
okay.
make the other stuff easy.
Love it. Very good. Perfect. Now, I guess one thing that everyone's going to be asking, and everyone also loves to talk about, what does your kind of fueling look like just generally before a normal run and then in the lead up to an event?
Yeah, it'll depend, and this is something I was horrible at in years gone past. So we're quite lucky when we started Run the North. One of the very first people to come down, Kate Feely's a sports dietitian, and very good at what she does. And so I've over the years chewed her ear off about certain things, and she's really helped us. She does talks now with our group as well.
Oh,
Um, so,
beautiful.
so I'm a pretty boring eater now. Like, she sort of told me 3 years ago what to eat, and I haven't really changed it a whole lot since, because I sort of thought, well, if that's what works. But so before a run, I'm pretty meat and potatoes. I'll try and that's not a good pun to use at this time, actually, because people will be writing down meat and potatoes. No,
Yeah.
so I'll just have a banana or a bit of toast, and whether that's honey or avocado, and then a black coffee, and that's normally on the way out the door to drive to Run Club. If it's say I'm in the middle of a training block into a race, then it sort of there's a bit more focus, particularly on the Saturday Sunday hard effort into a long run. So I'll make sure that I'm having like a big, typically lasagna. Like, I'll eat lasagna 52 weeks of the year if I can. So I'll yeah. But I like to take it a bit further, and I have it with a side of wedges just to double down on the carbs. So I'll smash carbs the night before, um, and then get up and pretty much rinse and repeat. But if it's a long run, I might have 2 pieces of toast and a banana instead of like one or the other, and then the black coffee. And then, fueling throughout, I typically stay the same like every time. So I found a gel years ago that I like, so I just keep having that gel. It works for me. I always say to people when they ask what gels I take that, like, I'm not a dietitian, so just go and try heaps. Like, I found the one that works for me, but that in no way means it's going to work for you. So I'll take that for most of a run, but then you just get sick of eating those things. So I get like 30 k's in, and I'll switch to jelly beans. I just eat jelly
Yeah,
beans
okay.
at the end of a race, but finish those, and then if I can get a chocolate milk at the finish line, I'm pumped.
And what about, are you still doing the beer and schnitzel before a race as well? I remember you telling me one time, I think you gave me that advice before last year's run.
Well, it would have been beer and a lasagna the night before. So, like, I just think, for me, I there's a great story about Robert De Castella, who had won the Com Games marathon, had the national record for years. It was only just broken this year, I think.
Oh, wow.
He had this function before a race, like before a marathon in the States once, where he was just on the beers, like 3 or 4 beers, nothing crazy. But the race organisers were getting worried that they've flown this guy over there, and the night before he's on the beers at the pre-race function. I sort of thought, like, well, he's going to run. I remember the first time I heard the story, I thought, well, I'm never going to run anything like what he's run, so I can probably just relax a little bit. And so now it's the mental side. Like, for me, I know typically you travel to get to a race. It might be far, it might be an hour down the M1, but you've still traveled, and so for me, it's that, like, I can control getting a lasagna or just getting a counter feed somewhere that's packed full of carbs, and just having a beer, because it's sort of like makes me remember that I'm not running the Olympics and sort of just like relax a little bit. I find if I don't do that, I just sit there and stare at the ceiling all night. So yeah, that's my pre-race. I don't do it every week before long runs, but I like to have a beer the night before a run. That's for sure.
I, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's finding something that really gets you in that parasympathetic nervous state so you are able to relax beforehand. You're not just wound and bound up, kind of staring at the roof and overthinking it. So, whatever that vice is, as long as it's not, 20 beers before the race, which I've had mates that have done and they've still been able to go out there. They've been able to finish. It's nothing special, but no, I think you've really hit the nail on the head. Finding something that just kind of lets you chill out, so you're able to get a good night's sleep. You can come in ready to go the next morning.
Yeah, it's just being able to switch off, right? Like I think we all, and I'd say to people all the time, like, of course you're nervous because people train for these things for quite a long time, so of course you're going to be nervous. You care about it, but at the end of the day, like endurance sports are pretty boring, and like I try and make them as boring as I can. Like if you've done 20 weeks of 20 weeks of a program with me, there's really no reason why you should be nervous the night before a race because you've done the hard part. The hard part was
Mm.
the consistency through 20 weeks. At the end of the day, that you're going to get up the next morning, and assuming you get to the start line, the gun's going to go, and then it's sort of like, what's running? Running sort of just catching yourself as you fall over. So like if the gun goes and you fall over once, like that's all I need you to do, and then it's kind of boring for anywhere from 30 minutes to 3-4 hours depending on what distance you're running. So there's really no reason to really be that wound up about it.
Yeah, yeah, love it. Perfect. Okay, so I've got a question now. This isn't from anyone. This is just what I think some people may experience because they certainly do inside the gym. But if you've got someone that's been running for a while, it might be a couple of years, or generally like around that, and they're starting to experience a lull. What would be your advice to them? So if they're not really, and I don't mean lull as in they're finding it boring, but they might be trying to shave time off or try to increase distance. What would be your advice to someone that might be experiencing that?
Yeah, that's a good question. It probably, I mean, yeah, I'll give a fairly general answer because it obviously depends on a number of situations depending on the person. But um, like I always think just changing something up is good. Like you've probably redlined for as long as you can, so you need to just sort of switch something, and whether that's, I'd love to say joining a run club or like going for
Like
a
run the
run
north.
with yeah. Oh, we're very good at that. No, or like just going for a run with a mate, or like even if it's purely to get the coffee or a beer afterwards, or like going for a run at the beach or in a trail that you've never run, like just doing something different where it's not so X's and nosy, and you know exactly what you should be doing and what split you should be running, and like just go and sort of try and enjoy it again, like just run. And whether that's like, people do all sorts of different things, right? Like put your headphones in, or if you always run with headphones, take the headphones out for once. You're like, just mix it up, run with some people, run in a different spot. That's probably um, my first thought. But then depending on your scenario, like if you have a coach, a run coach and a strength coach would be perfect. But if you've got one or the other, like it's worth having a chat to them and sort of like laying it all out. This is what I've been doing, and I'm getting nowhere. What's the go? And just having someone else cast eyes over it is probably a great idea, because that a lot of people would probably look at it, or might be able to look at something and go, oh, well, you're not doing X, you're not doing Y, like you're not doing long enough long runs, or you're doing long runs too hard, like trying to just get a different idea of what you're doing. I had a guy I coached a couple of years ago who was one of the quicker people I've coached, and I remember after he ran his last half last year, he said to me, he said, Benny, the thing you taught me the most was how to run slow. Like, just he was getting out there, and like he'd run his quickest time. So he wasn't saying like you've made me slow, but like
Yeah,
he was
yeah,
just getting out there and running as quick as he could every day. You know, and it'd be like going to the gym and trying to like I'm in a three rep max every single day.
yeah,
You're not gonna do it every day, and so like I'd sort of taught him that no, you need more of this just slow kilometers aerobic based stuff. And he just built more and more of that in, and all of a sudden started PBing again. So like that sort of scenario, like maybe this fictitious person that we've made up, but they're probably just hammering away, and maybe just need to take a step back for a second and reassess exactly what stimulus they're throwing at their body.
yeah. This fictitious person, they're on the other end of the call. So yeah. Anyway. All right, we're going to go through a couple of questions that we got off the gram. There's a few good ones. There's a few there's a few good ones. So we'll get there. The first one's from Big Troy Randall, as we know, the mobility king. But what he wants to know is what is the best go-to warm up exercise before a run that you've found?
Oh, geez, that feels like a loaded question too, doesn't it? From Troy, but I there's a few, and it would again like caveat depend on the person and what they
Absolutely.
really need to work on. Like for me, as we said earlier, my glutes are all for show, not for go at all. So I need to really work on those. So like I'll make sure I'm always doing like they've been called Brolgers or Captain Morgan, like where you lean on a wall.
Oh, yep, up against the wall.
You've seen me do it. Yeah. So I don't know what we're calling those these days, but trying to push your two knees apart, switch your glutes on. The other one I like doing is golfer's lift. So standing on one leg, shooting the other leg behind you, and essentially just trying to touch the ground. So switching on the glute of the leg you're standing on.
Okay.
That's me, right? Because I'm trying to activate my glutes. Like I used to always love World's Greatest Stretch because I just found that like absolutely every part of me was tight, and that stretch would just work a treat. So they're ones that I'll do like a lot of the time too. I'm in a park in the middle of nowhere, sort of thing.
Yep.
Well, not in the middle of nowhere, but I haven't got any equipment with me, so I'll work through those sort of things. But I like to preach to people like there's certain things if you're going to run regularly that you can tick off all the time. And so like I give the example of like I'll do calf raises in the shower because I know that every 1 or 2 days I'll have a shower. No, every day I'll have a shower. and so like it's just like I know I'm going to be there. So so when I'm making breakfast, that's when I'll do Brolgers. So I mightn't be going for a run, but I know that every day I'm going to make breakfast. There's always going to be a bench or a wall there. So that's when I'll do that. And you sort of just build it into your part of your day. I'll do sort of less stretching than when I go out to go for a run, but I'll do more when I go to the gym.
Yep.
And I don't think I've ever walked in and done the couch stretch, is it? That's sort of like 1 foot on the seat behind you.
Up on the bench.
So that
yeah.
I've never walked in and done that and thought, oh, beauty, not tight at all today. Like we can just throw that one away. Like every single time that one gets me. So I'll make sure I stretch when I go to do strength because I know, like most other people, I'm lazy and I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do the mobility stuff while I'm watching TV. You know, like it works. I'm sitting there not doing anything, but I'm not going to do that. So I try and work out where I am going to fit it in. And typically, and runners will probably be the same. Like the more you can do in the gym, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. We've got one from Laz.Smith. He wants to know why you're such a rubbish coach and have bad taste in memes. I'll lead that with a bit of a caveat is you're in my top 5 of I just pepper you with memes, I think 24/7. So I probably fall into the bad memes category as well.
Yeah. That's good from Laz because, like, I would love to retort, but I can't. I can't talk about a lot of the things he sends me because it's like how it ended up on the internet in the first place is beyond me. So no, that's good by Laz. I'll politely decline to respond.
We've got Big Matty McGreedy up next. He goes, does BG expect to regain the Run the North half and full marathon club records at any time in the future?
I mused with Maddie recently that I'd by the time I moved back to Brisbane, I'm certain one day someone's going to introduce themselves to me at Run Club and ask how long I've been coming because I've in the last couple of months, maybe even weeks. It's good when you start a Run Club, right, and you're the only one there. So I had the club record for everything for a minute, but I've I've had a guy Dan take my half marathon club record to the cleaners, and then another guy Harry that's been running with us for quite a while has absolutely smashed my time at Gold Coast recently. So it's bittersweet, right? I'm pumped for them as their coach, but yeah, my name's not anything anymore.
Oh, mate, you just have to bring in employee of the month and just keep naming yourself.
Not voted on by the other employees, though.
Absolutely not. We've got one from Luke Lloyd. He wants to know what motivates you to keep building up Run the North besides stacks of cash from merch sales.
You can tell that I coach most of these people that have asked these questions, can't you? It's quite seriously, it is the stuff that I said to you earlier. It's the people achieving things that they didn't think they would ever be able to do. That gets me out of bed, when it's cold and dark and raining, because you know that they're going to be there, and they just want someone to sort of tell them what to do and reassure them that they're on the right path. So I love that. Like I love just going through it with people, right? And like it's not always just the program. Like I'll have people call me and just sort of like let their life off their chest over the phone, and they're not looking for the answer from me. They just need to vent, right? And then the next conversation you have with them, they're fine and they're back on training. But it's you get into the mud with people, and so then when you see them out the other side, achieving their goals, that's the sort of like, because what they've been through, right? You know how hard it's been. That's the reason I'll keep doing it for sure.
Beautiful. And Luke also has a follow-up question. Is it true that Run the North is a Ponzi scheme?
I don't know. Is anyone? Well, you could think that if I'd tried to set it up down here, right? You'd just like pyramid scheme it around the country, but no. I mean, I wish someone else had asked that question, because I'm notoriously bad at chasing training fees, and Luke's one of the best at paying them. So I wish someone else had asked, so I could have had a crack about, for a successful Ponzi scheme you need to pay your fees. But no, Luke's pretty good like that.
Beautiful. All right, well that does it for the questions, at least, mate. Well, what I want to know before we do wrap up is sort of what's on next for Run the North. Is there any grand plans happening at the moment? Any scaling? Just potting along? What's up next?
Yeah, great question. I'm keen to, like I said, we'll move home soon, so I'm keen to get boots on the ground again and really have a dig at seeing how big a community we can make it. Like, I've met some unbelievable people in the last 3 years that if I hadn't done this, our lives never would have crossed. So, yeah, I'm keen to just see sort of not necessarily how big we can get it, but just I'm keen to see what the next lot of people that come through are, and helping them as much as we can. Yeah, there's still some opportunities there in southeast Queensland, I think. So maybe some big things ahead in the next 12 months, but I don't want I don't want to jinx it too early. I'll keep that one for next time.
Lovely. And are you going to be making a debut down in your budgies in December?
Mate, I'm hoping. I've listened to your vulnerability, and I must admit I'd never missed I'd always missed the reason why you're in the budgies. I sort of thought like, oh, that's good marketing, but when you go back and listen to why I actually do it, I was like, oh, I probably can't keep I can't keep not being there to roll up the sleeves or roll down the pants as it is. So um, yeah, I'm keen. I think we'll be back in town by December, so you might catch me this year. I don't know how I'll go with a
Ooh,
weight
very
vest though.
exciting. Yeah,
Are you the only
don't
one
worry.
with weight vests?
Nah, so I think last year we had, it must have been about 12 to 15 blokes rock up in the weight vest.
Yeah,
I'd
right.
say a better part of maybe 10 of those were in budgies as well. There are a couple of guys that wore full kit, which is fine. Um, but yeah, we obviously don't discriminate. You come down as is. I've got potentially one of the boys rocking up after a surgery, so I said I'd put him in a mobility scooter as long as he wore a weight vest in it and his DTs
Yeah, I
in the
like that.
mobility scooter. So like, it's as long as he does that, and I'm thinking he's pretty keen for it. So, that would be an absolute sight. Him just peppering people on his scooter as we're all drudging along. That would.
I love it.
that'd,
Oh, mate. That's massive. How many years in now? Is this year 3?
this will be the third year. So we started off just with Maddie did the first year. So it was I think there was about 4 of us in the first year. We then had over 60 last year with 200 people come down for beers. So we're looking at making it keep growing exponentially this year.
Yeah. Oh, we'll have to get some Run the North people down there this year then.
Mate, that'd be great. If you run the North budgies, a little bit of a more Ponzi scheme with the merch there.
I was gonna say, damn it, Luke's turned out to be right here. That's exactly where my mind went. But oh well.
But yeah, mate, love that. Well, what I want to do as well, if you just want to let people know where they can find you, where they can find Run the North, and of course, we'll put it in the show notes as well, because I'm pretty sure there are going to be a lot of people that even for my run, but there's going to be people that want to get into running, that want a bit of help with it, and is, of course, for that social aspect as well. So where can everyone find you and Run the North?
Yeah, absolutely. So where Instagram's probably your best bet. So it's @_run the north. Otherwise, we do have a website, which I spent a hot minute trying to build recently. So it's just runthenorth.au.
Beautiful. All right. Well, yeah, like I said, we'll put that in the show notes as well, and try and push as many people to get down there and start trotting as well. You can collect those fees.
I appreciate it, mate. It's a very social group. I enjoy it. They keep me interested in going back. That's for sure.
Perfect. Well, Benny, mate, thank you so much for jumping on and also putting up with my severe lack of technical proficiency when it comes to setting these sort of things up. So I do appreciate your time, and I'm sure everyone that's been listening will appreciate your time as well. So thank you very much, mate.
No dramas. Appreciate it.